From the studios of KENW on the campus of Eastern New Mexico University, it's You Should Know, featuring the people and events of Eastern New Mexico and West Texas.
Welcome to You Should Know. I'm your host, Evelyn Ledbetter, and today I have a really interesting guest and someone I've known quite a while, Mike Terry. Mike, so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me here. I always enjoy our visits together.
For sure, and you've had what we're talking about today is you're a beekeeper.
Correct.
But prior to that, you had some other things. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I was raised on a farm here in Portales, and we, Dad and us, our family, we farmed in this area and everything. And as I got older, got into the education, taught fourth grade, became an administrator, and worked through the school system. Got to the point of retirement and decided to retire. And when I retired, I'm now a realtor over at Buena Vista here in Portales. So, but during that trip, I decided to pick up a habit, or a hobby, I guess, I don't know. But anyway, I started beekeeping about 15 years ago and have enjoyed that ever since. So that's been kind of my stopping off spot.
Well, you've always been a busy person, so just slamming on the brakes wasn't a good fit.
My wife wasn't going to let me stay home, so I had to do something.
That was the real reason why. Well, tell me how you got started with it.
Well, the way I got started in beekeeping is it was as my dad got closer to retirement, he was looking for something to do as a hobby, and so he asked me to research it a little bit. And so as I started to research it, I kind of got interested, and then just due to things, we weren't able to do it together, but then later on in life, I decided that it was something that I had an interest in and started beekeeping.
And kind of pulled that back to almost
Correct.
Like that was something you had planned to do with your dad.
With Dad, yeah. He had done it as a boy. Used to in the farming area, a lot of farmers had bees. And then as it became more specialized, not so much.
Well, they're an interesting creature. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, just beyond the knowledge and the things. I mean, what they do to survive is absolutely amazing.
Well, every time I think I learned something, then I study it and I figure out I don't know hardly anything. But it is an amazing creature. The things that they do just naturally, it's by design. I have to believe that.
Innate. I mean,
yeah.
By instinct, because what they do, if we, as humans, if we were as well ran.
Oh, absolutely.
There wouldn't be any trouble.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about some of that. I wish some of my friends were more like bees.
You know what to expect out of those.
That's right. That's right.
Well, start us out just kind of about the life cycle of a bee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to come here together and share. Bees are an amazing creature. We've picked up some of our sayings from bees. For example, they're busy as a bee. And we just think that means we buzz all over the place, but that's not really what that means. Busy as a bee means that you're focused on your job, you know what your job is, and you do your job and you do it well. That's what helps to make that colony of bees be successful and to be able to continue to go. One of the other sayings that I like is they'll talk about beeline. I'm going to beeline over there. And, until I started working with bees, I really didn't know what those sayings meant. But beeline means I'm going straight from A to B because time is of importance and I need to get back. So because of the short life of bees, they have to be busy all the time and they have to have a purpose.
Right. Well, we'll start in with that. So from the time, how does a bee come into, from the time the egg's laid and everything, will you go through that life cycle of what
absolutely.
they do?
I think one of the most interesting things is we think that bees have a long life. They actually live for only about 40 days during the spring and summer. And when we talk about them being busy as a bee, it's because they work themselves literally to death. They know that their mission is to help provide food and nutrients for that colony to make that colony be successful. And they fly out and do a lot of collecting of pollen in different areas. And that's what that does. So when a bee only lives for 40 days, you know that there has to be a lot of bees being reproduced,
right,
or that whole colony would be eliminated before too long. So the queen, who is it's kind of a mixed saying. Some say that she rules the world, and others say that she's the slave of the hive. So it kind of depends upon which way you look at it. But she will, during the spring and summer, lay between 1,500 and 2,000 eggs a day. And it's pretty fascinating that being able to do that. So that's a lot of eggs, but if you think that every 40 days that generation of bees is being replaced, it's important that she does her job.
So literally their whole life cycle is just the survival of that hive, just
Absolutely.
on a continual basis.
Absolutely. They all have a job. You talk about the life cycle. I think, there's a chart that shows that, and I could be off on my days, but they all have a job from the time that they are hatched from that egg. They go through an egg, a larva, and then when they come out of their cocoon, or not cocoon, I'm sorry, but out of their cell, they have a job, and the first thing they do is clean out that cell because automatically they know for the survival of that hive that cell has to be able to be used again. So they come out automatically, they turn around and go right back into the hive and clean it out, or into that cell, excuse me. They'll clean that cell out because they know that either another egg needs to be laid in there or honey is going to be put into there.
So that cell is actually used for both?
Absolutely. It goes right back into use. So, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So the larvae, they hatch, and then they clean out their cell, and what do they do on their next part of their life cycle?
Well, the next stage of life typically is the nurse bee. The nurse bee will help to feed them the eggs and larvae as they're going through. They protect the eggs and feed the larvae as they're moving through. And then as they become older, then they, custodian bees, I guess you could call them, but they help to keep the hive clean and get it out. And then as they end up towards the end of their life, they become worker bees. And worker bees are always the female bees, and they have the job of going out, collecting pollen, getting the water resources that they need, and bringing back to that hive to make for sure that they have all of the resources that they're needing. So the queen, she never leaves. All she does is stays in that and lays eggs. Now during the winter, she will not lay that many eggs because they don't want that many mouths to feed.
Right.
Just like, but during the spring and summer, around 2,000 eggs per day.
Wow. So literally. Well, and I have read that the bee will sometimes leave once to, do they mate, or do they, what is the process on that?
Yeah, a new queen will leave the hive one time, and she will go on a flight, and there is an elevation where they fly back and forth at, and I can't remember what that is, but that's where the drones just congregate. They just know how far that they have to fly up. They know that that's where the queen is going to come when she is looking for mating, and they just fly in that area. And that's really all that they do other than mate. After they mate, the drone does die. So their only purpose is to bring life to that colony. Wow. And she will mate in the air for between typically 6 to 8 times with different drones. And it's an amazing thing because even though they know how high up to go and how far away from the hive, so the queen never mates with drones from her own colony. And that keeps a diverse population out there where they're not getting inbred or whatever. So, but after she mates 6 to 8 times in the air, she goes back to the hive, and she will not leave that hive again unless they go into a swarm cell.
So literally, when she mates, that provides enough of the fertilization for
3 to 5 years typically.
How long does a queen usually live?
3 to 5 years. They can live longer than that, but after about 3 years or so, they start to run out on eggs and stuff. And because the whole process of the beehive is for them to maintain and to live, when she starts to not lay eggs or as many as they think that they need, or maybe she becomes damaged, gets a leg hurt or a wing hurt or something, and they can sense that, then they think it's time to replace her. So there's really not a time frame. It's as long as she is producing what the hive is needing, then she can continue to lay. So typically 3 to 5 years. Wow. Can go to 8, but that's very, very seldom because most beekeepers will replace them out to keep fresh queens in there.
That's interesting. So literally all the eggs are within her when she
Correct.
is hatched?
When she goes back, she's done.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't put a pencil to the math on that, but that is thousands and thousands of eggs.
Absolutely. And if you think of how small that queen is when she comes back, that is a continual life cycle within her. that she is always producing that eggs, that she's always got that many eggs to lay. It's
That's fascinating.
Like I say, when you learn a little bit, then you just keep reading and you learn a lot more.
So literally, she is the hardest working one.
She is
in there.
And that's what some say, well, she controls it. Others say, well, it's the worker bees that are telling her we need more eggs because there's more resources out there, continue to lay more and more eggs. Or if it's a drought, that they're telling her, hey, we need to back off because we're just barely keeping this colony alive. So.
And when is it or is it even known of who determines when that queen is needing to be replaced? Is it the queen, or is the thoughts that it's the worker bees?
The worker bees will make that decision, and there is only one queen in that colony, and the frames that she is laying eggs on, any egg that is between 1 and 3 days old can become a queen. But she only wants to be the only queen. There is only one queen in there. So at some point, if she realizes that she'll continue to lay eggs, but as the workers say, well, it's time for her to be replaced, they will keep her off in another side of the frame so that way she doesn't know they're growing extra queen cells. And so they will grow 4 to 6 queen cells. They kind of look like a peanut stuck onto the edge of the frame. And I think we've got maybe a picture of that, but that peanut is larger, and because that's where they will grow her. Correct.
From what I saw, it's about the size of the end of your pinky.
Correct, right. And so they keep her away from them because they don't want her to tear up those queen cells. And they'll start to grow 4 to 6 queen cells because they know that they don't want just a one-shot queen, and they will go ahead and try to take care and give queen cell jelly to those and to get them to develop. And then when the first queen comes out of that cell, then that queen will go around and kill the other cells so that there is no competition.
So they take them out before they ever hatch. So the first one hatched.
First one hatches, and that also helps to keep the process going where it is, it's kind of competition of the fittest. It's not those that are the slowest, it's those that get the job done the quickest.
So there's not a different type of larva, obviously. It's the same type of larva that could be a regular worker bee or a drone or whatever.
Correct.
What happens to make that turn into a queen larva?
Well, the worker bees have the ability to become a queen cell, but like I said, it has to be 1 to 3 days. The drones are an unfertilized cell.
You said they're males.
Right, they are unfertilized. Therefore, that is what takes them into being a male.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, that was another thing I thought, because you need more females than you do the males.
You're correct. And so if a worker bee flies out to pollinate flowers and comes back, they do a waggle dance, which is called a waggle dance, and it's fun to take the frame out and kind of watch because somehow they communicate via their GPS, but you can kind of look and watch them, and they'll kind of point the direction that they say that they're going for their pollen and water resources, whatever they may be doing. And they're inside the hive communicating that to the other bees inside, saying, hey, you need to go south or southwest to find this flower patch.
What do they feed the larvae?
Oh, they feed them that jelly. Yeah.
Okay, and I've heard the term royal jelly.
Royal
Is that
jelly.
right?
They feed royal jelly to them. And I don't really know how that's developed, but they feed that royal jelly to those that they are going to try to do. And it is kind of a food source and kind of a protective coating around them as well. And now some cultures will harvest that and eat it, and they think that it has high nutrient value and everything. But it's very selective.
So somehow they communicate that they need to produce that royal jelly, which is only used at that time when they're trying to create new queens.
Queens, correct. So
wow.
Yeah. And they're doing this all on their own. So
that is fascinating. So like you said, so then I guess they take out the new queen, and she goes and she kills the larva, and she goes and finds the old queen and takes her out as well?
She will take her out. Now, there is only one time, and this is the time of year that I kind of like to do these presentations. If they go into swarm mode, so maybe the old queen is still doing a good job, but maybe the home or the hive that they're in is starting to become too crowded. And so they decide, well, we need to split up and we need to find a bigger home. What they will do is they will do swarms, and these swarms can land on a tree branch. I found them on bottom of mailboxes. It can be on a fence. It can be on many different things, and it will just be a very tight cluster of bees. Not a lot of flying and activity going on, but they will just cluster up and make like a typically around the size of a cantaloupe or something, or softball even. And they will cluster up, and when they're in swarm mode, that queen will take the old queen will take about half of the bees with her, and she will fly off. And while they are looking for a new home, she will do a rest there and call a swarm. And that's when they're gathered up on a branch or a fence or whatever. And then that happens typically 1 to 2 days before the new queen hatches. So she takes half of hers, she goes to look for a new home. She waits for the new queen to hatch, and then she has half of the bees, and then she goes to work and continues that cycle.
Because prior to hearing you talk and reading some, you see a swarm of bees, and the thought is these are killer bees out to attack. And it literally, they're just surrounding, the worker bees are surrounding her to keep her safe and just taking rest periods as they go and look.
Yeah, absolutely. They will send out scout bees. These scout bees will be looking around for a home. So to keep bees out of your eaves and stuff, you want to make for sure that you don't have any holes in there about 3/8 of an inch. But when you see these bees resting like that, that's the time to call a beekeeper, in which you can call down there at Buena Vista and get a hold of me, and I will come get them. You can also call the Roosevelt County Extension Office, and I think we've got their number that we'll put up there as well.
Well,
but
can
you can call them.
Do you know, can you give how do they contact you? What is the number that they would call to get you?
The best number to get a hold of me, my direct number is 575-760-5291.
Okay.
And if it's a swarm of bees like that and they're all clustered up, it's a very easy catch. I caught one out here at a fraternity house last October on their giant spider decoration during Halloween. But so that's the easiest time to get them. It's not something to be afraid of. They're the most docile at that point. Now, that does not mean that they will not sting you if you're agitating them. But what it does mean is they really do not have a home to protect. They're kind of in between homes. They don't have any resources to protect. And so what they are doing is basically resting and waiting for the scout bee to come back and say, hey, I found us a new home. And when they leave, it'll be like just you throw one of those tablets in there that just goes to dissolving in water. I mean, those bees just go to
build in their hive.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've only seen it actually 2 times. But when they go to flying out, it looks like a whirlwind of bees, but they actually have a purpose and they're headed to their new home.
Well, you shared with me that my brother was next door mowing a yard or something.
Correct.
And you were after a swarm.
Right. Actually, it was a swarm in town on a tree branch. I had to run home and get my ladder. I wasn't quite prepared. And when I got the ladder, about that time that I was setting the ladder up, they just started dissolving. And it was like you have a cluster of bees, and then all of a sudden they just go to whirlwind out. And so I'm running down the block chasing these bees, and they happen to land next to your brother in a home. And so we were putting tape up on the holes to keep the bees from going inside the home because it's very difficult getting them out at that point.
And living with a house with
you don't want
bees
that.
coming and going all the time.
So the swarms, you immediately want to call a beekeeper, like I say, either myself or call the 4-H Extension Office. There are others around. We'll come get the bees and put them into a hive and take care of them. That keeps them from getting into a place where they don't need to be.
So you literally introduce them into your hive.
Into a new hive. I don't mix them with other bees because they will not mix. So.
When bees, I knew you said that I'd heard you when you were talking, sometimes a bee will try to join a hive, and they really don't like that.
They don't like it, but because their whole purpose is they don't want another mouth to feed unless it is actually a producing. So at times you can mix them, but to do that you have to change up the smell of that hive and the pheromones so that they don't really know which one, if you're a coming or new one or an old one. So you can either use smoke or different
And you
things.
brought this.
Correct.
Tell me about this device that you use.
Okay, this is the smoker, or one of the smokers that I use. I have about 3 or 4, but this, there's different philosophies on that. Some say, it puts the bees to sleep. I can assure you it does not put them to sleep because they are very active during that time. But it's basically what my theory is in others, not just mine, but that when you are putting the smoke and you just squeeze it and it puts the smoke into the air and you put it on them, basically it is an alert to them that, hey, our house may be catching on fire. Well, it's the same with people. If we thought our house was going to be on fire, we would grab the things that were important to us to get ready to evacuate. The bees are doing the same thing. Basically, their important thing is they go, hey, we've got to take our food with us, and that's honey. So instead of them focusing on the beekeeper, they put their head down into that cell, and they are packing up basically honey, getting it ready to leave. And so during that brief time, when they have that smoke, they're not focused on the beekeeper, they're focused on packing up and leaving. So you do your business, your inspection or whatever that you need to be, and then you get out. Then when that smoke dissipates, then they think, oh, okay, we're all right, and then they'll begin to settle down. But all you're doing is really directing their attention.
Wow. And this is actually the when you have a basically you build a box is what
Correct.
Is what you have as a beehive.
Right.
And this is the frames?
Correct. This is the frames. This one here is a brand new frame. It has, they all start out with wax put on them, which helps to give the bees a start. The design on it is a design that they always built. Sometimes it might be a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller depending upon, but very, very uniform. And so this gives them the basic design and a little bit of wax to encourage them to build here. And then this frame behind it, you can see that they have built out the wax. Scientists decided one time they were going to have a competition with the bees, and they were going to look to see if they could design a better shape, and they couldn't. The bees, that hexagon shape loses the least amount of unusable space and gives it the best thing. So the bees automatically by nature are designed that. And so then these cells in through this area will either be used for honey storage, pollen storage, or the reproduction of eggs instead being laid in there and turning into larvae and new bees.
So we can't improve on what those bees
have
figured
absolutely.
out over absolute thousands of years.
All of these scientists think they're pretty smart and they can't outthink a bee. But it takes about 10 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax. So you try to always make for sure that you save all of your old wax, so that way it's 10 pounds of honey and a whole lot of work that they don't have to do. And so that helps to increase your honey production if you take care of your wax and don't let any mice or moths or anything get in it and tear it up. So.
Well, what's amazing to me is you had said that a bee in a life, 1 teaspoon of honey.
Oh, I know. And we don't think that way because of society. We're always thinking of volume and everything. And so the harder we work, the more we get. And I guess that's true with the bees too. But when you look at how many bees it takes to make a tablespoon of honey or a jar of honey, it's fascinating, and you realize that busy as a bee has a meaning to them. If they're not busy and they're not producing, then that colony will be destructed. So they have a purpose. Everybody has a job, and if you don't do your job, you're not involved.
And the hive doesn't survive.
That's correct.
Because they will starve out in the winter times. That is just amazing. So, Mike, this information, we haven't even touched on like the bee suits or the gloves or anything else. Would you be willing to come back and do another show and dig into this more?
I think it's fascinating, and the awareness that I want to bring to people is that beekeeping has a purpose. A lot of the fruits and vegetables that we have are pollinated by it. But this time of year, I really want to stress, if you see a group of bees clustered up, they're pretty docile. Don't bother them. Just call somebody. Let's get them into a new hive, and let's continue this process.
Right. So, wow. Well, let's just go forward and let's do another session. I mean, I didn't dig into even like the taste of the honeys or the pollination or whatever, the risks that they have. Okay. So if you would be willing to do that, that would be amazing.
Anytime. Just give me a call.
Okay.
I'll do presentations for groups and stuff, and because I just think the awareness and so people are familiar with bees and not scared of bees is important.
Okay. Well, we didn't even get started on the protection and things like that. There's so much we didn't reach on. But so fascinating. I've always had an interest in this and really
Well,
appreciate
thank you for
coming
having
in.
me.
For sure, Mike. It's been a pleasure. And I'd just like to give a shout out to our ENMU students crew. They're not seen, but they are the guys that are working and learning and training here. So thank you to all of you. And for all of you watching today, thank you. And we will see you next time. Cheers.